Hey guys, Eric and Ellie again. Today I'm just playing around a little bit. I still got Aaron's Uncle Joe's Honda Fit in the garage, and I still do have the Modis. Everything's hooked up on my little cart. There's a couple sensors I haven't used yet, especially with the Modis. The pulse sensor I've used on Hscope once, and I was kind of happy with the results with that. I'm going to just see if I could get a pattern on the Modis screen. And I was going to look for a way to sync. I thought maybe this would have been a tricky one because there's no coils exposed. But I got a paddle probe at Ben's, and I could catch number one there. So I'm sure. Well, it's a nice easy O2 sensor, the back probe too. Have to get this in here more and just do, because that's an easy one, or a lambda sensor. Well, it's called an O2 sensor. But that's nice. I'll get back there. I'll get the secondary for a sync. So it'd be pretty cool. Set it up, see what the, because you're always doing this. You never want to do it on the fly, or like whenever you actually need to, know what you expect. And I know a lot of things from these pulse sensors. What I see is different cars. They have different, you're not really looking at a waveform or a known good anything. You're just looking, seeing what you see. They all look different, but if you got a sync and you could find in this case 4, if one looks different, we're going to know. We're going to go to the either the crankcase or the intake. That'd both be cool to see what we get. I think it has a 1-volt scale. It's going to be easy to set up. I have not used the Handtech paddle probe with the Modis yet, so I got the BNC adapter on there for it. So we're going to see what happens. It should work on it. I've used it on the Hscope. I mean, it's pretty decent for secondary. Does what basically putting a penny on the coil does. But this one I could sneak around. Some of them it might be hard to sync. What I was going to do is see if I could look at the wiring diagram, find in the harness where, one of the injectors or something, to sync on. Even if I got a current ramp off the injectors, that would have been a good sync. But whenever I looked around there, because I know I put plugs in this year or two ago, and you have to take the whole cowl and everything off. So just playing around. There's some tests you could do, there's some tests you can't. Interested to see what the pressure transducer looks like on the Modis, but I'm not going to tear that off on this one. There's going to be plenty that the coils are all right in front. All right guys, let me set it up, and then I'm going to play around and see if we can get a pattern on it. Hey guys, really digging my little diagnostic cart. It beats setting up a table, and it's nice. I mean, it's more enjoyable just having everything right here instead of having to do the digging part. But what I did, I had to use these Pomona adapters. These things seem really nice quality. I mean, you look at it in the picture, you don't know what you're getting, but once you got these in your hands, these banana jacks are pretty heavy. But that's what you need to convert. Instead of using the banana inputs of the Hscope, I want to use my BNC leads. This is a Rotkee, just a pulse sensor. I got it going into the oil dipstick right now. That gives you a nice generous lead. I do have an extension for the BNC, but I have enough room in here. There's no need. I'm nice and comfortable. And then what I have is the Handtech, the coil unplugged paddle probe. And what I could do is just bend this. This is very flexible. I could bend around the fender. Some coils, it's hard to pick up with this, but if they're easy, you could actually just hold a penny and a test lead to it, and you're going to get a secondary pattern. If it's an easy one to pick up, we're going to be in luck. We could use this for the trigger, and that'll be interesting to see if we could see 4 pulses. This motor runs great. We're not really looking for nothing, but we're just looking, see if we can make sense of a pattern that we get on the screen. So next time, we're drawing on the spot. Okay, I have on channel 1, I have the Handtech. I left that on a 10-volt scale. I just used the preset to open up the scope. It's I didn't even realize the presets were on there like that. I'll go back out and I'll show you. Under the scope, under lab scope, you have presets. And for something like this, for coil unplugged probe and a pulse sensor, you don't figure you're going to get much, but it goes right to 2 channels, 10 volts, 50 millisecond sweep on it. So that's good enough to set the scope up. I'm not sure what I'm going to expect on channel 1. I'm sure it's not 10 volts, but we should be able to see. Now, if you move down to the blue, move over to the channel, and you see Dana do this all the time on whatever snap-on he's using. It's a little different platform, but you know, now this, the pulse sensor, last time I used it, I was just getting like over with 1 volt, and I think the next scale on Hscope was 3 volt, but we got a 2 volt here. So I'm going to do channel 2 on a 2 volt scale. And then we'll see, we'll keep this on channel 1 down here, just in case I have to adjust that 10 volt, which I probably will, but it should leave a mark. That's what I'm hoping. The trigger's auto set. I see Dana move that trigger almost every time. It never auto sets where he likes it, but I don't know nearly as much about this thing, so we're going to just leave it there. If we have to move it, we know it's something that you apparently do have to do a lot on this. But I mean, that's on any scope. You know, anything you got auto mode, you're going to have to adjust the trigger. But I'm going to fire it up and then hold the paddle probe to it. We're going to see what we get on the screen. I'll set up the tripod so get a little better look. Sorry about the glare, but I can't screen record on this monitor. But yeah, we do get a good view. All right, guys, I turned the screen so I could take you with me whenever I use the paddle probe so we could see if we pick it up. I changed the sweep a little bit. I put both channels on a 2 volt scale. I'm going to see if this will set off the trigger. So you can see the 1 coil there with the blue connector. And this is good. I could see up in the buffer from back here. That's what's nice about the big screen. I could see how much I have that I could go back and review, because it would be starting now and it's still recording this. I could go back and review all this. I don't know if you could see at the very top there's a white bar that's slowly moving. It's now about 1/4 of the way, or the buffer's filled. It's pretty neat. I mean, you got quite a few repetitions there. Now I'll stop that, and you can see the paddle probe disappear. This one's pretty nice for bending back. Like I said, though, some of the coils you don't get anything off of with this, but most of them you do. Put it on the side or something. It usually picks up something. Alright guys, I lost all my information. I let the buffer keep running. You do have to hit pause so you have your information in the buffer, so I just ran it again. But we could see, you know, like where the ignition occurred. I'm not sure, because I know on the intake and the exhaust, if you use a pulse sensor, you count over 2 for a 4-cylinder, or so many for a 6-cylinder, and so many for an 8-cylinder. But, you know, we're figuring this is the combustion here. So if we're in the crankcase, we're looking at, you know, pulses in the crankcase from the ignition getting past the rings. So I'm not sure if it's exactly the next one, but would have a trigger to which one. Would have to figure out which one's actually causing the pulse. There's a lot of, you know, research that's gone into that, and a lot of, I don't know a lot of it, but I know if I've seen one of these different, there's enough information out there that you could find which cylinder was causing the pulse, because you have a sync. We know that we have a firing event, and in between we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Fire again, 1, 2. So I'm imagining this is the firing event. This is actually the pressure that's hitting it. This isn't measuring anything. It's just reacting to pressure. It's not the transducer. We're not actually getting a measurement. It's just getting hit and leaving a mark when it gets hit, how hard it got hit. And it looks like they're all pretty even down there. If we wanted to get like 2 whole events on the screen, the zoom function's pretty nice, because you could, it'll just generate a bigger pattern. Then you could back out of that, and on the preview I have it on manual, so it moves with my thumb. You can find whatever you're looking for there. I mean, it's pretty nice. You get a lot of data up in this buffer, and that's one thing I love about Hscope too, is how much time you got. Some of the scopes like the Handtech I got and the Hscope, I mean, you have very limited time. So what you got on the screen is basically what you get. This buffer means everything, well, a lot. That and the resolution, I mean, there's filters you could put on these channels. I mean, there's a lot you could do. But I don't think this needs cleaned up anything. If I was looking for a problem, I'd be able to see a difference. Like if we had bad rings, one of these might be getting higher. It would register a higher hit because more compression would be getting to the crankcase. So it would know we have one with bad rings. I mean, it's kind of like a relative compression, only checking your rings. You know, seeing how much, you know, blow by you got coming past them. But I was going to attach this to the intake, but I just kind of had another idea since I mentioned it, is the Hscope. I think I have both these leads out, and it's so fast and so easy to connect that Hscope. We're going to see what kind of lead or what kind of pattern we got. I saved this on Modis, so we have this waveform we could go back to for comparison, but we're going to do the same test. I'm going to try to use the same voltage that I had on. I had channel 2 on 2 volts. And channel 1, I believe, let me get out of here. Or channel 1's on 2 volts. Channel 2, we're on 5 volts. So 2 and 5. Alright guys, I'm going to set up Hscope. It's a snap to set up. Probably going to just clean my screen's going to take longer than actually setting it up because I don't want you guys seeing on thumbprints. Alright, I'll be back. I always keep some glass cleaner up here. It's mainly for the tablet and screen more than it is for the cars. Always getting grease on the phone or something. But today I was down Goodwill. Me and Aaron go down there. I mean, they have so much stuff in. It's not just a store. It's like a service center or a collection center. You have to dig through, like, you know, bins they throw stuff at. This was a whole RAM mount. It's to put a laptop into a car. It's unused. It's all still in the bags. These swivels and these connections, and there's a TV screen holder that was with it. I mean, got all this for $5.99. So I mean, that's something with the swivel. I'm thinking either adding a boom to the cart with it, or actually being able to swivel either the tablet or the screen. And the bar kind of worked out. I just don't know. I don't have the other piece to go onto the. But I was wondering if I could mount this to the back of the box. This is like perfect. It goes from one to the other. Now if I could get a mount for the monitor, that'd be great. But the swivel on here, either way, I mean, it has the tablet, it's got the hooks to hold the laptop, and it's still in the bag, so it's pretty neat. Something going to add on there. I mean, it has a rod, has, you know, different things that go with it. It's either going to be a boom for like holding the pressure transducer or the pulse sensor, or it's going to hold the tablet or the laptop, but we shall see. It's a pretty good find. I found a lot of good stuff down there. Hey guys, I went to the oscilloscope module first. The first thing you plug in, I started up the car, and we're already getting the signal from the pulse sensor. Now I'm going to just take the paddle probe again, give a little bit of bend, and hit that coil. You see we're getting a real nice secondary ignition pattern. That's what I like to do to set it up. And then what we're going to do is go to the automotive module. The amplitude might not be 100% right, but we're going to see what they show. We'll start it, and we're going to see if we get a pattern. We could see down the bottom, we could see the secondary ignition, but the screen doesn't scroll with it. It doesn't do it all the time, and that's all right. Sometimes I notice it did, sometimes I notice it didn't. But we're going to stop. This, using the Android, we do get a huge buffer with this also. We could go for 4 minutes and 48 seconds. But what I'm going to do is just stop out right now. Hey guys, I switched to the screen recorder. I was just sitting here talking to myself for about 10 minutes before I realized the radio's on. If I'm not using my phone to record, it still plays the radio. I'm constantly listening to music all day long while I work. And YouTube has a problem with that, so I had to redo the whole thing, but no big deal. But this is the pattern we got. I did put a low pass filter on pulse sensor. And without the low pass, it still looks good like how we had it. We didn't lose any amplitude. That's why I put the low pass on it. As long as you don't lose like voltage on it, like on your scale on some, you will, and you'll lose some definition on the secondary ignition. But any of these pulses, it just enhances the way it looks. Gives you a little more less steps. You could actually see some differences, some similarities. I mean, we're not really looking for anything, but we could see the ignition. We see it did fire every time. You could scroll this, I mean, at your own speed, whatever you want. Also, this is pinch to zoom. You could change so much. I mean, you could zoom way in if you wanted. See if anything looks different, like if you did this at a different RPM, if you did anything along the lines and you just wanted to find where at in the buffer. I mean, it does zoom very good. You're getting your ignition too. We're using it for a sync, but we could actually use it for a firing event if we thought we were on the cylinder it was causing the problem. But we have 4 in between each firing event. If you had any, you would have to know the firing order. I don't, but if you assumed it was 1, 2, 3, 4 and split this on the tips, I'm not sure. We don't know which one's actually causing the pulse in the crankcase, so this wouldn't be doing much, but it would be showing you, you know, if you knew which one, you could just kind of slide this scale and you'd know which one's causing the pulse. I believe it's the very next one, being we're dealing with compression, and this is where the firing event would have been. So, you know, you could do a little bit more research into that. But you could do a lot. I mean, the Hscope is definitely faster. The patterns I like just as much. Get rid of the phase rollers. I mean, you could. I mean, like I said, there's nothing to measure here, but if you wanted to, it's that easy on Hscope. I mean, you could see we're going, the voltage this thing's making, it's making almost a volt plus or minus a volt either way, a little over a volt on the bottom. So, I mean, it does a pulse, it does good. This is the HS512 also, so it's, I'd expect the 502 to be a little bit better at the lower voltage stuff, because this is its lowest scale. I mean, it does great for me. I like that. Alright guys, I saved the image on both devices here. So what we have is Snap-on Modis versus Hscope. No, not versus. They both did this great. I couldn't complain about either. If either of these was my one scope, I could have got this pattern. You know, I could have used a pulse sensor. I could have found a problem if it was like ring related or we were getting compression into the pan, but the price difference on these is huge, and the Snap-on does have more channels. But the one thing that always gets me, and it's probably on the newer Snap-ons, it's the same way, is just the pinch to zoom. Yeah, that's not hard using the joystick on the Modis either. But don't count that humble little guy out. That packs a lot of punch. I mean, I really like the ignition waveform, like everything on it. They both did good. It's a good day. Alright guys, that's just a little bit comparison between the two. Hope this helps you out if you're looking for a scope or anything. I mean, I've made a couple mistakes, a couple regrets on ones I got, but they all teach you a lesson. As long as every time you hook these things up, you learn something. I mean, now we kind of know what scales to go on. And whenever you're looking at known good, that's great. Now you know what it should look like. That's what a pulse sensor is going to look like in, you know, a Honda oil dipstick. Now I made an adapter to put this in the exhaust. You know, maybe we'll do that another day. Maybe we'll run that through the Handtech. I mean, a lot of people out there at 1008C, I mean, it looks appealing. Maybe you made the mistake like I did, but you know, we could see if that thing's usable. See if we could get some kind of patterns like this on it. You know, there's a lot of things to do. The Hscope, I mean, I'm sure we could have got the pattern, one pattern at a time. It does very good on the secondary ignition. But, you know, it's one channel. It's for fast. It's usually for, you know, on the road or, you know, you're not at home. But if you're at home, I mean, this diagnostic card I'm starting to really dig. Having all my things very close. I mean, just being able to snap right to it. And actually, it did take me longer to clean the tablet screen than it did to hook up and get Hscope running. If you keep it in a drawer like that, it's like quick draw. That scope is so fast. If you use a Hscope, it's just as fast, only you get 2 channels and you get a big screen, you get a buffer. You know, a Hscope will find you a miss, but you know, that's just as fast to set up. Take your tablet, you don't even need your tablet. Plug it in your Android phone, you get the same result. Excellent, guys. All right, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Adios.